Introduction of India. In the year of 1947, independence was India a desperately poor country with life expectancy at only 27 years, high infant mortality rates, feminism, and a literary level of just 15%. At that time, Jawaharlal Nehru became India's first prime minister, who was left with the difficult task of rebuilding the country's shattered economy. As prime minister, he ruled India for almost 17 years. For the government and Mr. Nehru, development meant industry growth, and in the early 1950s they drew up a program of 5-year economic plans to increase India's industrial production and to boost its articulated accordance with the goal of a socialist pattern of society. In the first 4 decades after independence, India's economy grew slowly but steadily with the highly skilled labor force and the capacity to manufacture almost anything as the result. Yes, despite the growth, India was by the end of the 1980s still among the poorest country with the largest number of world poor people in the world. The India economy is today headed the positive way. It is the second fastest growing economy in the world after China, which also is mentioned in the text in Land of Gandhi, Willingness to Consume Fuels Growth, although poverty still precedes. The change in values, habits and options in India is undeniable, and so is the sense of optimism about India's economy's prospects. The such is based on strong industry and agriculture, rising India and fortune, investment and American-style consumer spending by a growing middle class, including the people under age 25, who now make up half of the country population. After growing 4.3% last year, India's economy is the second fastest growing in the world after China and is expecting to grow even more. The growth of the past decade has put more money in the pockets of the population in India, but especially in the middle class. India is slowly making a name not just for software export and service outsourcing, but also as an exporter of auto parts and motorcycles. Nature has also played a part as well. The sensual monsoon that ended recently was the best this artificially dispensed economy has seen in the last 5 years, with normal of excess rainfall in 33 of 36 of the country's sub-regions.
India drives into the new world car industry. The Indian car company Tata makes very cheap cars and sends them to Britain. The problem before that, India couldn't produce their own parts to the car, for example roof, doors, wheels and so on. But now, when they have the technology to make their own cars with their own products, and with the low salary for the Indian workers versus Britain workers, the Indians outperforms the British car industry and contains being a larger threat to the West car industry. India's challenge with China. China has more economical power than India. The only subject where India is ahead of China is producing in softwares. But now the Chinese recommend Indians to invest the Chinese factoring and asks larger Indian companies to move their companies to China, so the Chinese can invest in the Indian companies. But the advantage for China is that the Indian companies pay Chinese taxes and not Indian taxes. This is of course a very big problem for India, and they have to keep and hold their companies back from being Chinese